Hi, my name's Bryan, Bravo Romeo Yankee Alpha November. My call sign is Mike 0 India Hotel Yankee, and this is my take on SDRplay 1A and SDR Uno. But first, a little on software-defined radio. It's a communication system where components that have been traditionally implemented in hardware, for example mixers, filters, amplifiers, modulators, demodulators, detectors, etc., are instead implemented by means of software on a personal computer or embedded system. While the concept of SDR is not new, the rapidly evolving capabilities of digital electronics render practical many processes which were once only theoretically possible. The RSP1A is a popular entry-level receiver. It's a powerful wideband, full-featured 14-bit SDR and perfect as an all-round general coverage communications receiver. All you need is an antenna, a length of wire will do, an SDR receiver, in our case SDRplay 1A, a computer, we'll be using a laptop but you can use a PC or Raspberry Pi, and SDR Uno, SDR console, HD SDR or cubic SDR, we will be using SDR Uno. For the purposes of this demonstration I shall be using SDR Uno. This can be downloaded from https://www.sdrplay.com. The website is very helpful and guides you through downloading and installation. Setup is minimal, a length of wire for your antenna, an SDRplay 1A for your SDR receiver, and a laptop. And as the little chap at the bottom of the screen says, simples. Now let's go and have a look at SDR Uno. On loading SDR Uno, you are presented with a screen full of panels. This is known as the default workspace. There are 10 workspaces available within SDR Uno. Each can be modified to suit. Now let's go through each of the panels. The main panel controls the starting and stopping of the RSP stream. You can also control the gain with the slider. The SP1, SP2 and RX buttons activate the appropriate panels. Although each panel has its independent close icon, which will close just that particular panel, clicking on the close icon on the main panel actually closes SDR Uno completely. This is the RX control panel, and it is literally the front panel on your transceiver. Most of the buttons and sliders are self-explanatory, although there are one or two that will need explaining. To manually change the frequency, if you press the spacebar, it will clear the frequency display down to 1.30. From there you can start to type your frequency. You don't have to type the full frequency. You can press the letter M key and it will fill in the remaining digits and decimal points for you. Another way of changing frequency is to use the band button panel. Not all amateur bands are shown there. Should you want other amateur bands, simply click on the bands button top center of that panel and you'll have a drop down menu. From there you can select others. When changing frequency, you will also note that the appropriate mode will be selected for you, although you can override that along with the appropriate filter for that mode. This is the EX control panel. From here you can set many of the parameters that we will be using. As you can see, there are 4 notches, N1 through to N4. You can set the bandwidth of these notches and the frequency at which it applies. These notches will be applied to the next panel, which is the AUX SP. Most of the other sliders are self-explanatory, AGC, noise blanking, noise reduction, CWPK, and others. This is the AUX SP panel, also known as SP2. This is the panel that shows the frequency on the center line of the main waterfall, and this is where you can apply notches, etc. You will notice that there's SP, WF, SP plus WF and zoom buttons at the bottom of the panel. You can either have the signal panel on its own, you can have the waterfall on its own, or you can have both. The zoom facility is quite handy as you can expand the display, allowing you to pinpoint more accurately any interference to apply your notches to. This is the main SP panel, also known as SP1, and this is where your RSP stream will be displayed. The frequency that is displayed on the center line, the red line on the waterfall, is also the frequency that will be displayed in the AUX SP. You will notice that there's an SP, WF, SP and WF button at the bottom of the panel. This is the same as in the AUX SP and operates likewise. There is also a combo button, and this allows the overlaying of the SP and waterfall on top of each other. You will notice at the bottom of the panel there's a zoom button. It operates in a similar fashion to the zoom in the AUX SP. This one allows you to tune more accurately the signal on the expanded frequency. And now to demonstrate SDR Uno working. This is the default workspace that you're presented with. There are, as I've said before, up to 10 workspaces that you can load. You can modify each of the panels to suit and save them. This is the default for 1920 by 1080 pixels. To get the stream running, all we do is click on the green play button. This gives us a starting point. Looking for a signal, I see one about here, so if I click on it, and adjust the volume, that seems a very quiet signal. Right, let's try 40 meters, so we click on the 40 meter band. The green light goes on to indicate that it's active, and you'll also note that the frequency is in the center of the 40 meter bandwidth, bandwidth. If we come down to this signal here and we select upper side bands and adjust the frequency there, that is FT8. So we go back to lower side bands and see if we can find a signal, which I think there probably isn't one. No. And if we go here, that's Morse code. We can stop the RSP stream like so, and what I want to do is to try and find a band where we have a couple of signals that are interfering with each other. Back in a minute. Hi, I've not had much luck trying to find two signals interfering, but as an example we're looking at CW here. we have an exceptionally strong signal on the right hand side and a couple of weak ones to the left of it. I'll take the notch off. If we find a signal that we wish to suppress, press the shift key. You'll note that there's a yellow line now appears on the aux spectrum panel. If we left click, that now assigns that value to notch 1. Clicking on notch 1, we now have a notch. You can see some of the signal is still appearing. So if I use the mouse wheel and rotate it on the bandwidth of N1, which is notch 1, you'll see that that signal has disappeared entirely. And this is one of the fancy things, if you like, that you can do with SDRplay 1A. SDRplay 1A is not just limited to the amateur bands. If we click on the play, I can go to the frequency panel here. It's active because SDR Uno is in red in the plate at the top of the panel. I press spacebar. That clears the frequency to 1.3 zeros. I will, for argument's sake, type in 89.1, and instead of typing in the remainder of the frequency, just hit the M key. That now fills that out for me. This I know is FM, and it's stereo wide FM, and it's 120k bandwidth, and this is radio 2. Now you'll notice that it says overload in the main panel. Now, all we have to do is just to reduce the gain slightly to remove that overload. If you look at the system requirements here, they're very, very high, which is enough to drive it into overload. So just reduce it slightly. So, as I say, it's not just limited to the amateur bands, it's perfectly capable with the commercial bands as well. As I explained earlier, there are buttons at the bottom of the SP panels. We look at the main SP panel, we have SP, that's the spectrum, so if we click on that, you will just see the spectrum itself. WF is the waterfall. The default is the spectrum plus waterfall. However, you can click on the combo button and that actually overlays one on top of the other. We go back to the spectrum plus waterfall, and if you click on the zoom button, you'll suddenly find that the signals are that much further apart. So we take it back to standard. There we go. If we go back to the notch, there is another notch, another signal here that I would like to get rid of. So if I press the shift key, I've got my yellow line. I press the right mouse button. That has now assigned that to notch 2. So by clicking on notch 2, now I can go to notch 2 and change its bandwidth. And suddenly we find now that the only signal that we've got left is the one to the right of the blue line. There is so much that you can do with SDRplay 1A and SDR Uno. If you're interested in further information, you can go to https://SDRplay.com and download their manual, currently at version 1.41. Thanks for looking.